Coming up on Tech News today, is Apple stealing your email? Is Google just not impressed by its own phones? And the FCC is on the unlocked phone case. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for St. David's Day, March 1st, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell last year's gadgets. Find out what your used iPad, MacBook, iPhone, Galaxy S, and other smartphones are worth at Gazelle.com. And by Lantronix, maker of the Xprint server. Print from your iPad, iPhone, or any iOS device to virtually any printer. For more information, visit xprintserver.com/twit and enter the code TWIT to receive free shipping on your order. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, put them in some context for you, starting with the top 10 stories of the day in the news. That's how Microsoft felt today. Dramatic, as Reuters reports that the European Commission plans to fine Microsoft before the end of March in relation to the antitrust case regarding browser choice for Windows. Yes, the one that's more than a decade old. This would be the second time Microsoft would be found in violation and fined of that 2009 settlement. Microsoft's board cut Steve Ballmer's bonus last year as a result of the failure to provide a browser choice screen as required. Microsoft says that was just a technical error. Either way, sources tell Reuters the commission plans to fine Microsoft by Easter. So, new pope, Microsoft fine, all in time for Easter.
Just one day after Groupon's very dismal fourth quarter earnings numbers that saw negative earnings and unimpressive revenues, Andrew Mason is out as CEO. Executives Eric Lefkowski and Ted Leonsis will step in to cover his role on an interim basis as co-CEOs. Oh, co-CEOs always work out so well. We've known from
Speaking of
him. A search for a new CEO is underway.
BlackBerry owners, get excited. I love saying that. There's an update to BlackBerry 10 that BlackBerry says will improve third-party apps as well as provide better Gmail calendar support. The update weighs in at around 150 megabytes and will be available in the coming weeks.
Unlocking your phone lost its legal exemption in the U.S. at the end of January, but never fear. FCC Chairman Julius Genachowski is here. The chairman told TechCrunch the ban raises competition and innovation concerns, and the FCC is going to investigate. They're going to get out their magnifying glass and decide whether the FCC, quote, can and should enable consumers to use unlocked phones. Unlocked phones can be sold in the U.S., and many carriers allow unlocking. The law is just unclear whether you have the right to unlock a phone on your own.
Facebook's confirmed it's buying the Atlas advertiser suite from Microsoft. Though rumors have suggested that this is Facebook launching its own ad network, the company says no, it just wants to help advertisers close the loop and understand how their investments on Facebook end up earning them money. Atlas allows advertisers to plan campaigns, to buy ads on sites across the web, to measure their impact. It can handle search, rich media, and in-stream video and display ads, as well as offer APIs for programmatic control of big campaigns.
German lawmakers say Google and other news aggregators can continue to show single words or very small text excerpts on their sites without being required to pay. However, anything longer than that is still the exclusive property of the content owner. The bill also gives publishers 1 year to use their journalistic content commercially.
So they just have to make the font really small, and then it's okay. CFOs say the darndest things. They're so cute. Yesterday, it was Time Warner Cable's CFO saying nobody wants gigabit internet. Today, we have Google CFO Patrick Pichette telling the Morgan Stanley Technology Conference that Motorola's current roster of phones don't wow by Google standards. The remark was likely meant to stoke anticipation for future products now that Google has owned Motorola long enough to influence the product development cycle.
British Sky Broadcasting Group, or BSkyB, will buy Telefonica's UK fixed-line broadband and telephony business for 200 million pounds sterling, or about 300 million US dollars. The deal should close in April if it passes regulatory clearance, at which point customers will be moved off the O2 and BE broadband bands and become Sky customers. Sky would then become the UK's second largest ISP behind BT. Virgin Media would still be in third place.
Electronics chain Best Buy did not receive an anticipated takeover offer from its founder, Richard Schulze, by the deadline yesterday. Schulze had been attempting to buy the company back since last August, but Bloomberg reports he could not line up debt and equity financing. CEO Hubert Joly said the company will continue its plan to turn things around and aims to increase online sales from 7% to 18% of the U.S. market.
Cody Wilson's nonprofit organization, Defense Distributed, demonstrated a semi-automatic weapon capable of firing over 600 rounds with a 3D printed AR lower. The lower contains the gun's operating parts, including the trigger. Last year, Defense Distributed demoed a lower that failed after 6 rounds. The designs for the new lower are available for free, and it covers every part you'd need.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Gazelle. Been saying it all weeks, folks. What are you putting it off for? Go dig out those old gadgets you don't need anymore. You probably got some new ones at the end of the year around the holidays, or maybe you've just been inspired by all these product releases in the early part of the year. Go take that old stuff that's sitting in a box and turn it into cash. If you're sitting there like me saying, like, you know what, I don't want the hassle of having to list it and talk to people and meet. That's why Gazelle is awesome. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You just go to the website, GAZELLE.com. You type in what you got. You got an old Android phone, you got an iPhone, iPad, BlackBerry phone. You put it in there. They'll tell you how much they can pay you for it, and you lock that quote in. Now you don't have commitment issues. Don't worry about whether you actually want to sell it or not. Maybe it's your little first phone, and you might want to keep it forever. Lock that quote in now because it's not going to get more valuable, and you got 30 days to decide if you want to sell it. When you do, once they get the device, they'll pay you fast by check or PayPal. It is by far the easiest way I've ever done to sell gadgets and turn them into cash. So if you're a procrastinator like me, stop. Go to Gazelle.com right now. Free shipping. Most items even qualify for a free box. Fast processing and no listing hassle. Sell your last year's gadgets today at Gazelle.com. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, Darren Kitchen had a unavoidable issue, and he couldn't be with us today, so it's just the three of us. But that's cool. It's like, it's like the star team, concentrated power, right?
Something like that. And Jason's here, too.
Yeah, I'll assemble you guys into one giant Voltron of news.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it, too. Well, let's start with FCC Chairman Julius Janikowski. I was trying to remember the name of the guy in Voltron.
Keith is the lead guy.
Was it Keith?
Then there's
so Jason's Keith.
Right. Yeah, I guess so.
FCC Chairman Julius Janikowski, as we mentioned in the news fuse, said the FCC is going to look into this whole DMCA exemption removal for unlocking phones. If you're unclear what's going on here, because you'll see some articles say unlocking a phone is illegal, and other articles say, no, it's not illegal at all. From 2006 until 2010, the Library of Congress, which has been charged with this duty, issued an exemption to the DMCA in the case of unlocking phones. Now, this past October, when they issued their new exemptions, they did not issue an exemption for unlocking phones. They said that, A, the decision in Werner versus Autodesk by the Ninth Circuit Court of the United States, which said that a EULA, an end-user license agreement, can prevent you from owning software, can say, like, you're just licensing it, you don't own the software, means that they no longer feel as comfortable issuing an exemption because you may not own the software you're unlocking on the phone after that case. And B, there's more unlocked phones being sold all the time and more carriers willing to unlock phones for you. So they don't feel that the exemption is necessary. Now, what this leaves us with, though, is a question of whether the FCC even needs to step in, whether unlocking a phone is actually circumventing copy protection, which is what the DMCA is about. This hasn't been tested in court. So I know as a trained attorney, you kind of like you resist speculating on things that haven't been tested in court. But if I can pull you out of that a little bit, if you had to decide, if somebody set you up as judge, would you call unlocking a phone circumventing copy protection?
Well, I mean, arguably you could say that you don't want somebody to copy a proprietary code that was on your phone, right? So I guess that would be the way to do it if you're going to be Verizon or AT&T or the wireless carriers. So if that's their argument and that's actually what they're putting on their phones, they might just change the way phones are locked so that it does apply. So I don't know how the situation is right now. I don't know what kind of arguments they would even make, because at this point, when it comes to unlocking phones, it's not really that big a deal when it comes to something that Verizon wants to support. The fact that it's illegal, theoretically, I mean, it's not like they're going after anybody. There's a reason why it hasn't been tested in court, because going after companies that are unlocking phones. They let you switch carriers. I mean, switching carriers is very difficult in general just because the hardware isn't there. So I just think this might be somewhat of a big deal over something that's technologically pretty difficult right now anyway.
Although there was an exemption from 2006 to 2010, so it may be that they didn't go after people because they are like, oh, well, it's not worth fighting when the Library of Congress has issued an exemption. And maybe they would start doing it now. I mean, Sarah, do you think unlocked phone as an issue has gone away now that we have more to buy? Where do you fall on this?
I'm using an unlocked phone. It was really easy. I called Verizon and I said, will you unlock this? And they went, yeah. So, it seems
now,
like a non-issue to me.
Were you far into your contract, though?
What's that?
Were you far into your contract?
No. When this happened, I had only been with Verizon for a short period of time. It was there was a point where Verizon said, "Yeah, we're going to let you unlock phones," and so I called, and that was the end of that. It was a 5-minute phone call, if that. So the fact that it's technically not supposed to be legal seems like a non-issue to me. And yeah, I mean, if these sorts of situations aren't being enforced, if I'm not going to get in trouble about all of this, well, I don't know how much it really affects me on an individual level. But yeah, we probably shouldn't have laws in place that make something technically illegal for kind of no reason.
Yeah, but then again, you can do this with carrier permission, right? Like you were saying, if these companies are willing to make it very easy to obtain, I mean, it's pretty much a non-starter. The other thing is, I think the Verizon iPhone 5 is unlocked already when you buy it. You can switch networks to AT&T. That just becomes, do you want to even do that? So I think Verizon can hang its hat on the fact they have a really good network and say, look, if you want to switch, you can go ahead. As long as you bought the phone from us, we're fine.
Well, the Verizon iPhone 5 is unlocked internationally, so you can use another SIM card when you go overseas, but it's not unlocked domestically because it's still got a CDMA radio in it, so you can't use it on the AT&T network because it just doesn't have the right bands.
I think it does. There's an old story about that. It was around September, so I think. But anyway, we'll find out later.
Yeah, you may be right about that because it has the international bands and maybe those let you use it on AT&T, but it's got different bands than the AT&T phone. Anyway, it's a confusing situation. It's not as clear as, your phone is unlocked. I feel like the bigger problem here is not the FCC getting in and saying, well, let's issue our own exemption. Let's see if we have the authority. That's nice and all. I'd rather they keep their mission focused on other things. I think the problem is the DMCA. The DMCA is broadly used for all kinds of things that it was not intended for. It was intended to prevent copyright infringement. And even that, the way they wrote it, I hate. But the fact of the matter is it's now used as a weapon to hold over people's heads. So I think that this sort of thing, if it's got enough public support, should be used as a rallying cry to say, let's re-examine what the Digital Millennium Copyright Act does and say, okay, we're past the millennium mark now by 13 years. Maybe we need a new law that is tailored specifically to what the actual harm of copyright infringement is and protects only that and doesn't allow people to use it as a weapon. Meanwhile, Apple is stealing my email. Is that what's happening, Sarah?
Well, Tom, it depends on what kind of emails you're sending. Apple's iCloud email system is filtering out certain phrases. Now, we don't necessarily have a list of the phrases that Apple is filtering out, but we know one of the phrases is barely legal teens. Now, you might say barely legal teens sounds like something that is bad. Maybe people shouldn't be sending each other those sorts of emails. The issue is that, these aren't necessarily spam emails. These are emails that could be construed as, inappropriate or that sort of thing. But Apple isn't sending these emails to your junk folder so that they can just sort of live there and die there. It's just not sending them at all. They're going away into the ether. And Macworld did some tests and found that even an email with the phrase barely legal teens that was contained in an attached PDF or even a zipped PDF were also going away without being sent. Now, when if I am sending these emails, I mean, I am allowed to send them. It's not as if, the send button is grayed out. It's just not going anywhere. And in Macworld's test, they found that the filtering occurs on inbound emails, not outbound. So you can send any email from your iCloud account. It's not as if you're not allowed to send these emails, but they're really not going anywhere. Macworld reached out to Apple about this because a lot of people were saying, well, hold on a second. I mean, if that's one of the phrases that's blocked, I mean, as a journalist, maybe I'm I'm not sending any pictures of anything that's barely legal. We're just talking about this. Those emails will then be blocked. Well, you can't do that. I mean, we're just talking about something. Apple's response was, occasionally, automated spam filters may incorrectly block legitimate email. If the customer feels that a legitimate message is blocked, we encourage customers to report it to AppleCare. My question is, well, how can you report anything to AppleCare when the email never arrived in the first place? I mean, I can say to myself, well, maybe there are emails that Apple is blocking that I'm never getting and aren't going to my junk folder. But if they never arrive, I don't know. You don't always know that someone's about to send you an email. Sometimes you get emails out of the blue. Ayaz, does this bother you, or do you think that this is Apple just trying to keep things clean?
I mean, I think arguably, I can see it being like a spam filter going wrong. I mean, technologically, I can see that being the easy way out of that. But I'm just like, this is kind of creepy in the idea that there's that whole Microsoft campaign saying Google's reading your emails. And if you're using iCloud to use your emails, and then you find out that certain things aren't getting by, Apple's got a history of being a bit arbitrary when it comes to, at least its App Store policies. I don't want to find out that emails I was sending weren't being sent out. It just seems a little bit strange, because then that actually would justify all those silly calls you get. Hey, did you get my email? Like, this is just annoying. I mean, I don't know why you'd use this phrase. Even if you're talking about this article, right? So if you want to talk about this whole idea and you write this phrase, it will disappear. So it's just it's a little bit worrisome, because you just don't know where your stuff's going.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways that those words could be used in a very legitimate sense. And you should get this email. And like Sarah said, if you didn't get the email, how can you complain about not getting the email? I guess you'd find out when somebody says, hey, did you get my email? No, I didn't. And if you're aware of this story, then you might contact Apple support and say, what's going on here? I do think that the reaction here is like, Apple is stealing your email. Apple is censoring you. It's not. Apple's got a poorly implemented spam filter that shouldn't be doing things the way it is, but spam filters often make little mistakes like this. Doesn't sound to me like this is really impacting people a lot, because it took a lot of investigation. Tom Z in the chat room pointed out Read Write Web responded to Cringely's post about this, saying, wait a minute, it just looks like a bug. Macworld followed up on that with the story that Sarah's talking about. So it took a lot of investigation to even confirm that this was happening. It can't be impacting that many users out there. Still, it's bad. It should be fixed. That's not the way it should work. Your email should go into a holding folder where you can go find it again if it got misapplied, and then report and say, oh, this wasn't spam. It shouldn't got put there.
Well, exactly. And if something, a phrase like barely legal teens, we all roll our eyes and go, yeah, people probably shouldn't be sending emails like that in general. But again, where's the master list? If Apple would be transparent about the sorts of phrases that it's not going to allow, saying this isn't going to go to your spam folder, it is simply going to disappear if you send emails like this, whether you agree with it or not, at least you would know. But we don't know that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really the problem here. Is that you don't have a proper fail-safe mechanism in place, and Apple's response is what Apple usually responds with, which is everything we do is designed to work just this way, and we're not going to admit any mistake while we quietly fix it, which is probably what they're doing. Let's talk about those cute little CFOs and the crazy things they say. What's the Google CFO saying this time, Ayaz?
Yeah, this Google CFO and Senior VP, Patrick Pichette, he said that the products in Motorola's pipeline, quote, are not really to the standards that what Google would say is wow, innovative, or transformative. He said this statement at a Morgan Stanley technology conference. He said Google inherited 18 months of pipeline and that Google has to drain that right now. That's actually his phrase, drain it. That was a little strange. All the while, the company's building its next wave, so we're going to see some Google influence soon. Also, though, interestingly, Motorola is getting the help of Guy Kawasaki. He's taken a job as an advisor to Motorola. Now, Kawasaki was Apple's chief evangelist for 4 years. So we're going to see some new influence on Motorola. Sarah, I'm going to ask you this. Based on Google's recent Pixel, that beautiful piece of hardware, what kind of wow do you expect from Motorola coming up?
Well, I mean, if Google wants to make products that are like the Pixel Chromebook, that everyone, almost across the board, based on unlimited use, says it's a beautiful machine and maybe something that's going to be tough to sell because it's also a limited machine. But as far as hardware goes, if Google's capable of that sort of thing, I would say a lot of wow from Motorola. I mean, the Guy Kawasaki thing is interesting because, of course, he's he's at least at one point was very intimately familiar with how Apple put together their products and why they kind of put themselves on a pedestal hardware-wise. So this sounds promising to me. I mean, I think a lot of us have been sitting around going like, what are they going to do with Motorola? You know, it's like there's this whole sort of arm of Google that they bought, and then they wanted to stay away from, you know, or keep at arm's length anyway. So yeah, I mean, if Google's saying, listen, Motorola stuff does not have that wow factor, well, now they're in the position to turn up the wow.
Jason, you and I have tested out a bunch of Motorola Android phones, a bunch of them. Like, so, well, I mean, they're not, the latest generation isn't that bad, actually. The M, the Max, all these versions that are out there. But what could step it up? What could make these phones stand out even further?
Well, I mean, off the top of my head, what I would like to see them do with Motorola is kind of go down what they've been doing just with general Nexus devices, period. You know, peel it back from being this is a very unique experience to Motorola and turn it into this is what Android is capable of. And, you know, we now have the power to control the hardware and give you the experience. You know, now we're not even working with another hardware manufacturer to help create this co-branded Nexus device. Now we have total control over this. This is what we're capable of. And we've heard a lot of rumors about a possible X phone that has nothing to do with the Nexus program, possibly, but that's coming from Motorola and possibly the first kind of collaborative effort with Google and Motorola creating this device. But I'm not surprised at all to know that they're still kind of going through that old inventory and, you know, all that stuff. I mean, Motorola had been working on phones for years, so it's not surprising at all that even though Google now owns Motorola, they still kind of have to push out some of that product and really get to the core of what Google wants to offer here.
Tom, do you think that Google needs to strip out all that software layer on top of Motorola phones, or do they need to do something about the hardware itself?
Who said they're going to strip out the software layer? I mean, we're all he said was the phones haven't wowed, but now that we're in charge, they're going to. I mean, right. What I want to know is what is it at the Morgan Stanley technology conference that makes CFOs say things that can easily be taken wildly out of context? Because it happened yesterday to the CFO of Time Warner Cable. Now, granted, what she said was controversial, but it was definitely taken out of context in a lot of situations. And I think what Patrick Bichette is saying here sounds bad. In a way, like we need some wow phones, but I think what he's saying is, you know, we're going to step it up with Motorola. It's supposed to be a positive, and maybe that's why he's CFO and not Chief Marketing Officer. But yeah, what does Motorola need to do to get back to your original question? I don't know that it's anything about stripping away that, you know, the Motorola interface. It's just making a better interface, and I will answer your question definitively. What they have to do is in the interface. It's not in the hardware. I don't think you can differentiate on hardware with smartphones much anymore. You can do a little, but I just don't know that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that there's anything left that will really wow us hardware-wise in smartphones. I think it has to be functionality and it has to be interface if you really want to turn heads.
Yeah, I'm sure, Tom, you're probably right. The idea is it's a CFO, and they're like, listen, we got this unprofitable arm. It needs to make money. It's going to make money. Trust us, because you're our investors. We want to make sure everything's going okay.
Right.
All right, let's take a quick break. Thank Lantronix for their continuing support of tech news today. If you have a home office, maybe you've got a printer at home and you've got an iPad or an iPhone, you want to print from it, but you don't have one of those new AirPrint printers, don't wait. Don't run out and spend a bunch of money on a new AirPrint-enabled printer. The one you got is going to work just fine. And in fact, if you got more than one printer, Lantronix is even better for that. Xprint Server enables wireless printing from your iPad, your iPhone, or your iPod Touch, and you don't have to install anything new. It prints right from the iOS operating system the way it is. So you don't need to print through apps. You don't need to install software. You don't need to email yourself documents. It prints directly from the iOS native menu. Compatible with more than 4,000 top brand printers. And I've been saying this over and over in this ad, but I was really blown away how easy it is. And I've set it up twice now. Once in San Rafael and once after I moved to LA. And it just, you plug it in and it works. Network devices never work that easy, but this one has for me and it will for you. You just open it up, plug it in, you print. Advanced configuration available by the web interface if you want to tweak some things. And one Xprint server supports multiple printers and virtually unlimited iOS devices. The Home Edition is only $99, and that supports 8 USB printers and 2 network printers, or you can get an Office edition for $199. That one sports 8 USB printers and unlimited network printers, plus many network admin features like Active Directory support if you need that sort of thing. So here's what you do. Go to xprintserver.com/twit for more information and to buy. And we've got a special offer code. Use the code TWIT to receive free shipping on your order. Remember, visit xprintserver.com/twit and at checkout, enter the code TWIT. And we thank Lantronix for their support of Tech News Today. Well, we talked about Groupon's earnings report yesterday. That was quick. Andrew Mason's out, huh, Sarah?
Our guest yesterday was like, yeah, you know, Steve Kosak was like, I'm really interested to know what's going to happen with Andrew Mason. And sure enough, just mere hours after we wrapped yesterday's TNT, Andrew Mason was out as CEO of Groupon. So this is just a day after those pretty dismal earnings that I talked about on the show yesterday. He posted a somewhat colorful send-off letter and said at the top, listen, this is for employees, but I'm going to post this publicly because I know it's going to leak anyway. She's probably right about. He says, yeah, I want to spend time with my family. That's why I'm leaving the company. Nah, just kidding. I got fired. He said, I might be going to a fat camp because I gained what he called the Groupon 40 by working there over the last few years. He even made a game reference. He said, if Groupon was Battletoads, it would be like I made it all the way to the Terra Tubes without dying on my first ever playthrough. And there was a lot of talk yesterday, you know, some people saying, yeah, you know, you go, Andrew, that's kind of a fun goodbye letter. At least you know, find the humor in all of this. And other people saying, this is some guy making light of a bunch of people who are about to lose their jobs. I mean, just because he's gone doesn't mean that Groupon doesn't still have financial problems. You know, this is like, you know, a very cutesy way to make light of a serious situation. So no matter how you feel about the way that he said goodbye to everybody, there was a more formal letter to employees from Eric Lefkofsky, who's the executive chairman and co-founder, and Ted Leonsis, who's the vice chairman. They say they're going to run the company as co-CEOs, but that they are looking for a new CEO. Did somebody just say something?
I said worked great for RIM.
Oh, yeah, I know, exactly. Well, it's always interesting to me when you hear stuff like this because it's like, how seriously are they actually looking for another CEO? Sometimes they just sort of say that and then they hope that no one will remember and then they just sort of become CEOs. What's interesting is that Groupon stock had plummeted after those Q4 earnings, down 20%, is now up more than about 10 now that Andrew Mason is known to be leaving. So, you know, there's a little bit, I guess, of, you know, hopeful attitudes, people saying, well, this needed to happen. There was talk of this back in December. The company had said, listen, we're not getting rid of Mason. And the stock had taken a dip at that point as well. What's also interesting is, as these co-CEOs, Leonsis comes from AOL. He started there back in 1993, so he was quite the AOL veteran. He made a lot of money when AOL and Time Warner merged in 2001. But then he also stayed at AOL through the horrible .com crash of those years, ended up stepping down as vice chairman in 2006 after sort of bringing AOL back from the depths of despair. So he certainly has a lot of experience with the ups and downs of a big company. You know, Groupon's a pretty big company. Tom, does this seem like, you know, I think it was probably just, you know, a matter of time before Mason got the axe. Do you have a lot of faith in the model now that these two other guys are running the helm? I mean, we talked a lot yesterday about whether we thought coupon clipping on the internet was a good idea at all.
Yeah, I think it may be a business that's overblown. And I suppose that Andrew Mason, being sort of the visionary founder type, was the wrong guy to lead a business that has smaller margins than maybe he expected. And maybe these guys are the right choice. Whenever I hear co-CEO, though, it never, ever ends up well. Now, RIM worked very well as co-CEOs. I joked about that earlier, but for many years, it worked just fine. So maybe they're the exception that proves the rule for most of their run. But it usually seems like a compromise situation that's not going to last. And maybe it's just meant to figure out who's better at running the company, and then the other one will step aside. But no, none of this gives me any confidence that Groupon has cracked the code and figured out how to do online coupons. I think online coupons are here to stay. I don't think they're going away. But I think the initial euphoria over Groupon has proven to be overblown, and this doesn't change that.
I mean, it definitely seems like that with co-CEOs, it could be troublesome. But the thing is, it depends on what they actually execute. Because If they just stick to what they're doing, which is just these deals, that's not going to be enough. Looks like they're going to need a lot of strategic partnerships with major companies. But the fact is, all these major companies already have their own competitors. So I don't really know. I'm not really sure how they could work with that. I think I was reading some article, like one of the crazier ideas was, why don't they just go buy Foursquare or do something like that, where they can just integrate something with that has a similar user base, but they can actually take advantage of Groupon better. Maybe something wild like that is a way to go, but we're going to have to see what happens with this, because it's just a really crowded field.
That's actually a really interesting idea, Ayaz, the whole group, the whole Foursquare thing. Because when we mentioned some of their really bad earnings reports, Groupon still has quite a bit of cash on hand. I mean, they have the kind of money to, I don't know if it's Foursquare or someone else, but yeah, if you can figure out how to make the coupon business somehow richer with another business that's related, and that can incorporate your core business into something that's already working for them, that would be interesting. But yeah, they've got to change things up. I can imagine there are a lot of people working at Groupon right now that are just absolutely freaked.
All right, let's talk about iFixit outing some details about the repairability of the Surface Pro. I always love it when iFixit gets around to finally pouring out the results of the teardowns.
Now, they've actually put a list together. This is one of the first lists. Normally, iFixit will explain how difficult it is to just disassemble one or two tablets. In this particular case, they made a list, and they rated tablets for repairability on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least repairable. Points were awarded for upgradability, use of non-proprietary tools for servicing, and component modularity. The number 1 best, most repairable tablet is the Dell XPS 10, scored 9 points for being easy to open, having color-coded screws, and labeled cables inside. Notable ones like the Fire HD and Nexus 7 both scored 7 points. The iPad 2, 3, 4, and Mini all scored a 2, being very difficult to open. And the least repairable tablet was the Surface Pro with a score of 1. I believe some of the complaints about that was using a lot of adhesive. Tom, you and I like to tinker with gadgets a lot. Should tablets be more repairable by normal people, or is this just something, it's just an appliance? There's no need for this.
Sure, I'd love them. You know, I would absolutely love that. I love being able I remember when I first discovered that laptops you could open up and put new RAM in. That was the revelation, because laptops were really expensive in the early days, and they just weren't something I considered to be within my reach. But when they finally did become, I was like, oh, but they're all locked up. But they weren't, right? You could replace the hard drive. You could replace the optical drive. You could put other things in the optical drive. There isn't really anything like that with tablets. You just sort of assume, oh, this thing is glued, locked up. There's nothing I can do with it. I would personally love to be able to tinker and upgrade with my tablet, but I'm not sure how important that is to the masses of humanity.
Sarah, a lot of phones are all sealed up, but a lot of phones aren't. They have the removable back. You can swap out the batteries. Why should tablets be any different? Why can't you just swap out a battery on your iPad? Well, obviously, Apple's a very bad example for that, but why not have an openable machine?
No good reason, really. I mean, they're very thin. There's not, it's not like there are like little screws on the back where you go, hey, this should be a lot easier. I mean, the whole thing is kind of designed to be sealed up really nicely. I understand you want to be able to customize, the hardware that you bought and that you own. But I also don't find, I've got like 4 iPads. Well, over the years I've collected them for, research purposes for my shows, but I don't need to change what's inside them. And I think I'm probably speaking for the vast majority of people who have tablets. It's not something I look at and go, gosh, if I could only open this, I'd be so much happier. As long as my battery life holds, I'm pretty good. And the battery life, at least for iOS stuff, is generally great.
Yeah, these sealed items, they kind of irk me sometimes. When there's no expandability, Apple, looking at you here, that's where the issues come in. But there aren't a lot of components that you could mix and match with these devices, because they've soldered everything to that one board. I don't foresee a chance where we'll have you can actually like upgrade the RAM or upgrade your storage other than using micro SD cards. It's just this weird, almost making these things appliances. I don't like this idea of, it's almost the same thing that happened to cars. You can't really go in there because it's designed by designers and not engineers. So when you're trying to get into there, you just can't work. I think they should be more repairable, because, have you ever tried to take one of these things apart? Like, you need like a hot glue gun or...
But what are you trying to repair?
Well, I want to get inside of this thing. It's a toy. I want to play with my toys.
Well, okay, but that's not repairing anything. That's just you wanting to look at, a circuit board.
I haven't broken anything yet. And so knock on wood. But
Money 2004 says it's emasculating.
Absolutely emasculating that I can't rip open my tablets.
I think we'll leave that right there. Thank you, Sergey Brin and Money 2004. Real quickly, new browser stats out from Net Applications and Stat Counter. They both say different things because they measure things in different ways. Net Applications measures unique users, and of their measurements, Internet Explorer, second month in a row, above 55%, up to 55.82%. IE6 fell to 6.33%. If you're in the IE6 death watch, it's still got a ways to go. Firefox number 2, 20.12%. It nudged up a little bit as well. Chrome was the only one to decline in the list at 1.21% down to 16.27%. And then Safari and Opera round out the top 5. Now, Stat Counter measures page views. And the reason I bring both of these up is when you measure page views, you're measuring a different thing. You're saying how active are the users of these browsers, no matter how many of them there are. Chrome tops the list, 37.09% of page views in February. IE second, 29.82%, then Firefox, 21.34%, and a drop off to Safari and Opera after that. My question is, first of all, I think these are all great stats because it shows there's more diversity in the browser marketplace than we've ever had since the launch of Internet Explorer and the death of Netscape. But I think it's really interesting that Chrome is on the decline in number of people showing up to use it, but it's still top of the heap as far as power users must be using it all the time. I mean, obviously, I've got like 20 tabs open right now myself, so I'm counting for a lot of page views in Chrome. I mean, you guys both use Chrome, right?
Yep.
I use Chrome, yeah.
And Jason, when you're not sitting there at the counter where you kind of have to use a certain browser, what do you use on your own?
I prefer Chrome, but I use a mixture of Chrome and Firefox. No real like specific application for either. It's just because I like having different browsers to have different accounts logged into.
And that's fair. I actually have Opera as my default browser on Windows, Chrome on OS, but I like Chrome because of the syncing.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think that that's why we're seeing this disparity, is that Chrome actually isn't top of mind for the general populace? Firefox has kind of creeped into the general awareness, and that's why it's rising in unique users, but the power users all use Chrome because of the features it allows you to use?
I mean, the numbers seem to shake out that way, right? So the general public uses IE because that's the default. It's what's available. And then people who are like, wait, I'm getting kind of tired of this, but I want to do a lot of crazy things. You're going to use Firefox because you can extend that like with all the extensions. But then there's also Chrome with that syncability that's built in because you have that Google account. So, I mean, it seems like this looks about representative. I don't know if it's going to, I mean, this idea that Chrome is going to become the biggest browser of Firefox, maybe it's just because the way they work just works for this right proportion of people.
And people are pointing out you can sync with Firefox, but it's harder to use Firefox across platforms. Now that Chrome has an iOS version that works very well. That's one of the reasons that I've stayed in that universe. But Opera and Safari also have their own syncing. Sarah, why do you use Chrome?
That's a really good question. It's funny. Every so often, doesn't happen very often at all, something will be really wonky in Chrome, and so I'll open up Safari and you know, just try to figure out, like, is this a Chrome issue or is this an issue, you know, with the originating site? And Firefox, for whatever reason, you know, a long time ago, years ago, I remember it was like a huge resource hog. And a lot of people were, you know, had the same complaint. And so I kind of was just like, well, screw this. I'm not using Firefox anymore. And I've really never gone back. For the most part, though, I find that Chrome is the cleanest browser. I like the way that it works. I actually like it better than Safari for that reason. So I kind of am a browser loyalist. You know, when I get something that, you know, I get my stupid little Flash crashes on Chrome every once in a while. But besides that, I like it. And I'm definitely a Chrome power user. I've got like 4 Gmail accounts I'm logged into right now, an endless number of tabs, and it just kind of works for me.
I do find Chrome to be a resource hog sometimes, but it's been better in the past, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. In fact, I was having a little bit of the old problems today, and all I did was restart Chrome, and it was fine. So I don't know what was going on.
I wonder if Chrome on mobile is going to have a halo effect, because I know Chrome is only supported on Android 4.0 and higher. But is it even the default yet on Jelly Bean, or you still have to install that?
I think you still have to install it because a lot of the device manufacturers still load their own browser. In there. Well, Chrome doesn't necessarily come pre-installed.
My Nexus 7 came with Chrome default, so
right.
it all depends.
Exactly. The Nexus devices, it is pre-installed for sure.
Interesting.
Right. And yes, Firefox exists on lots of platforms. I meant mostly iOS that you can't get it on yet. You can get that version of it though. So it's just not as convenient yet, but it's almost there. You can't get Chrome on Windows Phone. There just aren't as many people using Windows Phone. So lots of little niggly bits around that. Send us an email, tnt@twit.tv. Let's move on to the randomizer. Big Dog is that big, scary dog that can walk like a dog, but it's a robot. It can now throw things at you. It can actually pick them up and throw things at you. This is Boston Dynamics robot, and it's been replaced by the LS3 version of Big Dog, if you saw the old one. And wow, that's the sound.
No, don't do it.
In the demo video, it's not just throwing like a tennis ball. It's picking up a cinder block and chucking it like 6 or 7 feet.
Wow.
Destroying it. That's not terrifying at all.
No, not at all.
Building. Throw me that cinder block. Yeah, now we need big dogs that can catch them.
I think you're onto something. I think this is the new mode of transportation of cinder blocks everywhere, just flying through the air. Yeah, but I mean, like this idea that we always have a fear of robots trying to kill us. The fact that one can pick up a cinder block while obviously
throw it at you.
Would throw it at you. So instead of just like running you over, because it probably
we don't know how accurate it is, though, right?
You're looking at the bright side. I really like that. Yeah, don't know how accurate it is. Just duck.
All right, Sarah, do the calendar before Ayaz throws a cinder block at you.
Hey, the Freedom to Connect conference is happening in Silver Springs, Maryland. It starts on Monday the 4th, goes through Tuesday. Also starting Monday is the Launch Festival. That's happening in San Francisco. Runs March 4th through 6th.
And now, incoming.
Incoming message.
We got an email from Todd. He says, hey, TNT crew, a couple of comments on the conversation in episode 700 about users not wanting gigabit internet. First, from a consumer point of view, why would I pay for that when I would never actually get to use it? The best speed I have available at my house is through Comcast at a maximum of 105 megabits per second at $200 a month. First, the word maximum, they don't actually guarantee I will get that speed, and odds are I will not, especially at peak use times. Second, how fast would I go over the data cap streaming HD video and such over a connection like that? I would be throttled halfway through each month. Now, from the point of view as a person who works for a telecom, I actually asked our executives if they had considered offering something like residential with a guaranteed minimum, symmetrical connections, no caps, etc. I was told that marketing determined that the plans offered based on what they felt they could get what they could get people to pay. So as you all postulated, until it makes money now, they aren't doing it. Oh, and my company is putting a lot of money into infrastructure to cell towers.
Oh, great. Yeah, well, cell towers are necessary, but not from my wired internet provider. Yeah, we have a lot of people wrote in about this. VJ, one of the boys from Boston, wrote in kind of the same thing that Todd's saying. It's the sticker shock that makes you not want to upgrade in speed, and also the fact that you don't get the speed that's advertised. I'm always a little shaky on the don't get speed as advertised because cable internet in particular shares the node, and it all depends on how many other people are using it at the same time. I mean, they cannot guarantee you an exact speed the way DSL can say, we're pretty sure you're going to get this amount if you're this far from the colo, or not the colo, but I'm blind, the CLEC. But anyway, I probably got that wrong too. They have more accurate ways of measuring it than cable internet does. But it all comes down to the fact that what Todd said about marketing and setting the price wouldn't be as much of a problem if they had competition. But marketing knows you can't really go much where else to get 50 megabits per second. So here we go. We'll price it whatever we want.
There's these old prices that seem crazy because, Google's offering gigabit for what, $70 a month? That's the thing. It's not necessarily about... If you price it and you're anchoring to these old prices, of course it's going to look like $200 or $300 or $1,000. But these things should just evolve faster. Like, okay, the technology is there. Let's get faster internet, please.
Well, we missed Darren Kitchen today. We're sorry he couldn't make it. We'll try to get him back next Friday. He always does his best, but he's in Amsterdam, and those darn European clocks, they're hard on a hacker out there. But let's thank each other for being with each other today. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sarah,
you all
and Tom,
for being with me.
Jason, and an audience.
Oh, and thank you. Yes.
That's it for Tech News Today. Don't forget about our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com, place to let us know what stories you'd like us to cover on the show. Also, don't forget about our best of submissions form at any point during the week, any week. on any show on Twit, really. If you see something you're like, that's hilarious, that has to go into the best of show at the end of the year, go to twit.tv/best of and let us know. That's it for us. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call, leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. Lance Ulanoff joins us on Monday. We'll see you then.